So what's the 5-to-1 golden rule? What I read is there's the kind of balance you can achieve of how many interactions you have in a relationship that are positive versus negative. And I think that's what the 5-to-1 means. But basically, there should be kind of an empirical, like if you just look back over a month, how many of the interactions were positive, how many
Or
were
the
negative?
day. Look at the day, right? So the idea of this ratio, well, it's not an idea. It was a finding. It is a research finding that the Gottmans got after looking at thousands of couples and codifying these interactions that they were observing. Couples that tend to be satisfied in their relationships, that are happier, they have better health, etc., they are having approximately 5 positive interactions to each negative. And I want to be clear about what I'm defining as positive and negative here. So this doesn't necessarily mean that these don't need to be big, sweeping romantic gestures, buying flowers, having sex. These are things like paying attention to what we call your partner's bids. We make these bids for affection, for connection, all the time in our relationships, not just with our partners, but with our friends, our coworkers. And we may not even know what our style of bid is, but if you see them on a sheet, you can pretty quickly identify them. Bids could be wanting to show your partner, tell your partner something and have them be proud of you. It could be wanting to go buy groceries with your partner, doing things together. Hey, you want to come with me? It could be telling a joke and hoping that your wife looks up from her email on the computer and acknowledges it. If she laughs, then you've got a positive. But if I don't even look up, that's a negative, right? So it's not necessarily that I'm calling my husband an asshole. It's just, am I connecting with him? Am I meeting those bids for connection and vice versa?
But do those also give you a guide of how you should behave?
Well, I think what's really important is actually asking your partner or paying attention to what your partner's bids are, because what matters to Ty, my husband, may not matter to you. For instance, I mean, Ty's bar is so low with me. I thank God
in
for
terms
him.
of what defines a positive interaction?
Right. Like, he just wants me to ask him if he wants a water when I get up to get myself one. Right. Just be a basic, decent, considerate person is all he asks of me. Whereas mine might be sort of like stay up later with me, watch a show, go to bed at the same time as me, or know about the people in my life, that sort of a thing.
Let me quote BoJack Horseman on this. When you look at someone through rose-colored glasses, all the red flags just look like flags.
That's great.
There's a certain sense where if you from the very beginning, of course you could end up in toxic relationships that way, but life is short. You're going to die eventually. Might as well really go all in on relationships.
There's a line in Drugstore Cowboy, a great film, where he says, we played a game you couldn't win to the utmost.
Yeah.
And I think life is a game you can't win. And so you play it to the utmost. Like, to love anything is insane because you're accepting that you're going to lose it. Like, I'm a dog person, and you get a dog, and you just resigned yourself to unbelievable pain because this thing's going to die in like 10 years, maybe 15 if you're lucky. And why would you open your heart to that? Why would you because the joy is just so wonderful of it, of the ride up until it. Same thing with us. I mean, every marriage, every relationship, every love is going to end. It's going to end in death or divorce. So why not just go in? Go in and just get weird, don't define it the way that's, look at, again, we keep going back to true romance, but just get weird. I love this Elvis pretending to be weirdo. I love this, former sex worker who's whatever, just go in, love this person, have them love you. Don't worry about what everybody else is doing in their relationship. We're in such, it's not to me surprising that as the performative aspects of life on social media increases, people's satisfaction with their relationships and the divorce rate, is following the same trend. Because I think everyone's going, well, what's everybody else doing? You know, well, how much sex is everyone else having? The only two people that should worry about how much sex you're having are the two people. If the two people are happy in the relationship, great. Then what does it matter? What does it matter what everybody else is doing?
Yeah, there should be an element to great relationships and great friendships of like, fuck the world. It's us versus the world.
It's us.
Yeah.
So like, what's the difference between a deep friendship and a friendship that also has a sexual component?
I remember being very confused about that when I did a lot of LSD. I was like, what? The line between romantic relationships and everything else kind of got blurred. I was like, oh, I'm just like in intimacy.
Yeah.
And some intimacies mean that you spend your life together more and have sex, but like the same basic thing is there. Like you're seeing someone for who they are.
Yeah.
The question is basically, do you stay a little bit autistic or do you catch up? And I believe you can catch up. You can build this missing structure.
Yeah.
And basically experience yourself as part of a group, learn intuitive empathy, and develop the sense, this perceptual sense of feeling what other people feel. And before that, I could only basically feel this when I was deeply in love with somebody and we synced. Or
So there's a lot of friction to feeling that way. Like it only with certain people, as opposed to it comes naturally.
Yeah.
It's frictionless.
But this is something that basically later I felt started to resolve itself for me to a large degree.
What was the trick?
In many ways, growing up and paying attention. Meditation did help. I had some very crucial experiences in getting close to people, building connections, cuddling a lot in my student years.
So really paying attention
Yeah.
to the, to the feeling another human being fully.
Loving other people and being loved by other people, and building a space in which you can be safe and can experiment and touch a lot and be close to somebody a lot. And over time, basically, at some point you realize, oh, it's no longer that I feel locked out, but I feel connected and I experience where somebody else is at.
I mean, if you're very careless with the triggers all around you, then you're just, I think all of us have the capacity to really suffer from that kind of chemical or psychological or philosophical existential crisis.
But then it raises a question, why are we built this way? It seems like it doesn't make sense, right? And here's where some of this thinking about where we came from as the human family is kind of interesting. Does it make sense that somewhere on that spectrum that it's good to detect that there's an array of adverse forces out there in the world right now at this moment, and to withdraw, to hunker down, to not fight, not strive, not try to meet the challenge, and outweight these negative forces that are present out there? And that makes a lot of sense. And all animals that have been studied in one form or another show this. Even the worm that I mentioned earlier, C. elegans with 302 neurons, it can effectively give up in challenging situations. We've done this with zebrafish, tiny little transparent fish. You can give them a challenging situation and they will give up. But then if you stimulate a couple very specific brain regions in particular ways, you can motivate them to overcome the challenge. And if you inhibit those regions, they give up much more easily than they would otherwise. You can do this in mice. You can do this in rats. So this is an ancestral conserved pattern to detect that things are pretty bad out there and to conserve energy, to hunker down, to wait out the storm.
I gotta figure out how to make money on this thing. It's simply too good.
When you have kids, you look back at everything you did and you think like, fuck, if I'd gone left at that point instead of right, if I had eaten, who knows, what if I'd eaten like a turkey sandwich when my balls were creating the cum that was going to make my kids? Would I have a different kid? Would this being not exist in my life? Like, you start looking at everything and you realize like, oh, thank God for every single thing that happened to me, because it all led up to this. And for me, that's that it's like it frees you in this, it liberates you, because you realize like, oh wow, as clumsy and selfish and at times rotten as I've been in my life, that did not impede the universe at all from allowing these two beautiful beings to exist in the world. So
or maybe all of it enabled, all of it, like a concert, perfectly led up to that little beautiful moment